management, or other host or advertisers.
All right. We've got another week here with Everything PEO.
Attention agents
Teresa
and business
Strong-Myrick
owners.
in the studio with Action Coach
Tales of
Tampa Bay.
workers'
Stick around for a
compensation.
good hour.
Very few people can. Listen to the pros, making agents and business owners smarter every Wednesday on Everything PEO.
Hello, Tampa Bay listeners and beyond. You've got Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. Just another Wednesday, 6 p.m. You know where we're at. Glad to be back in the studios. I know I missed everybody last week in the live stream. Without it, it's just not quite the same. But we were able to pre-record a show. I did a little pond hopping and just got back from London late last night. Thought I'd have plenty of time. I strategically landed the plane by 7:30. I was like, heck, I'll be home by 10. Didn't even get out of customs till 9:50. So that said, we're running on E, but we've got to turn the page and keep the show rolling. This week, Teresa Strong-Myrick.
Yes.
Am I saying that right?
Yes, you did.
With Action Coach Tampa Bay. Thank you. In the studio with us. I actually met Teresa on LinkedIn of all platforms, and she gave our business a little love, had PEO advisors on the Tampa Bay Spotlight Series, and I just thought it would be a heck of a way to say thank you and bring her through Everything PEO. On top of that, there's a little bit of a parallel line here. We call it Everything PEO, Teresa, but really it's more like anything entrepreneur. This is a Tampa Bay kind of money talk, business talk station, so I know there's a lot of folks kind of in the genre here. And certainly the traffic and that we try and bring to the show, anything that can help a business owner of all sizes, shapes, etc. So glad to bring you in here. I know as a former business owner yourself, you know the challenges firsthand that designing a business efficiently, effectively, what that takes and how challenging that can be at times. So I just figured, like, heck, why don't we get you in here and chop it up a little bit? But before that, I always take a quick moment and say thank you. Last week, we had Kelly Anderson in the studio. Well, I should say, 2 weeks ago, but he pre-recorded our show in the studio. Kind of a first for the show, kind of a neat experience, but went through the 4 tiers of fraud, worked through workers' comp and kind of navigating that claims management process. And although we didn't have the live stream, which I feel like drives a lot of the viewership to the show, got a few messages, got a few DMs this week. Very excited to get that summary show produced and some of the clips out, because it was a little bit of a disruptor, I think. Some folks, I think, learned a lot just kind of hearing and understanding how, rampant fraud is in the workers' comp space. And others maybe disagreed with some of those approaches. And I think that's what's kind of neat about this show is, sure, of course, this is someone's take on it and what they feel, but it's also a lot of educational, content in there. So with Florida, California, Texas, Florida being the 3 most fraudulent states in America, I think it's a given that there's some of that. But in the kind of space of a professional claimant and, the ambulance chasers and, unfortunately, it finds its way through this process. So Kelly, if you didn't catch the show, Teresa, we'll have the summary show up in a couple weeks. It was really kind of neat to hear his take. Kelly's owned a PEO for almost 15 years. We both kind of came up in the industry 20 plus years ago. He's been a great contributor to the show, an awesome friend. And personally, I feel like it was certainly one of our best shows.
Awesome. Definitely have to check it out.
But this week is yours. So tell us a little bit about Action Coach Tampa Bay.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being a part of this show. And I thank you for being on mine. This is wonderful, right?
Absolutely. I rub elbows.
So Action Coach is a coaching firm, a business coaching firm. We are part of a global entity. So we started about 30 years ago. We're currently in over 80 countries. We have thousands of coaches. We are labeled the number 1 coaching entity in the world. Here locally, we've been here for about 15 years. So we've been here 15 years serving this local community and just helping business owners design a business that can work without them.
I think even myself, having done PEO for 22 years, and entrepreneurial journeys are very unique. Everyone has their own path to it. But even myself, just 2 or 3 years ago, finally looked in the mirror and said, I don't know if it was the 7-year itch. I don't know. I want to level up. There's more out there. and got into some coaching, some masterminding. I joined EO, Entrepreneur Organization. Not sure if you're familiar with that. And it was kind of neat to see there's people in there running 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure businesses, but yet they still take the time to look in the mirror and coach, whether they're a coach themselves, doing coaching. I think you've really got to put your arms around this, because no matter how successful a business can be, that outside lens looking in can go far. And but I also think it takes a little bit of receptiveness. Like, you have to be open to not necessarily constructive criticism, but hearing what you're doing well, maybe not so well, and not everybody can chew on that.
Right, absolutely. One of my favorite quotes is by Les Brown. It is, "You can't see the picture when you're in the frame." And that is perfect analogy for coaching, because you just can't see everything because you're in the minutia of things. And for some people, some business owners, it's their baby. They hold it close to them. And like you said, sometimes they also there's a bit of ego with it. I started this thing, I can run it, I know what I'm doing. But, every now and then it's great to have another set of eyes on things.
Absolutely. So you said global organization? Is that
global? Correct? Yes.
Huge. EO is also global, 16,000 members. I want to say it's over 70 plus countries. The reach of EO goes so far. So are these entities globally talking to each other? What's that really look like?
Yes, we absolutely do talk to one another. Now, because we have been in this area for 15 years, we've helped a number of business owners as well. And we don't just deal with one type of business, of course. We have many industries that we will help. So that helps us in helping others, because we see what is working for different industries. And we can also say that, because many business owners come into coaching thinking, you don't know my business. I don't need to know your craft to know business, because business is business. The fundamentals are the same.
Now, I know you've owned a business yourself.
Yes.
And have done some life coaching in your background, family counseling, law enforcement, wide ranging. It seems like you've done well. You've got a true passion for it. So tell me, how did you get into action? What's that look like?
So, very interesting story. And I love telling this because it's the passion I have for helping business owners create something that they can work, that works for themselves, that works for itself. I started in public safety because I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people help themselves. But as I was governed by government agencies, I was also stifled in what I could do. And I saw that people needed more than just tactics, just small things on the surface to help them. I wanted to have a deeper reach. So that's why I got into life coaching.
Excellent. It's funny, I'm 42, but I've been doing PEOs 22 years. Largely, I've only had 2 jobs my adult life, and I was a mortgage broker through the 9/11 boom, and I found a lot of pleasure in kind of helping folks, get their homes. And as that industry was drying up, I had a friend in the PEO space, and we kind of went to lunch with one of his contractors one day, and he was talking about how much this had helped his business, and I found that same parallel there. It's not meant for everybody, but there's a true gratification that comes with it. I've got to assume kind of helping some of these businesses through a coaching can almost get that same feeling. Is that fair?
Absolutely fair. What I didn't say is that in 2020, the reason why I transitioned to life coaching and working for someone else, because people often ask that question, is because when I started my life coaching business, I didn't think of it as a business that can work on its own. It was all wrapped around me. So in 2020, like many people, I lost some very key members of my family, and it just stifled my ability to help others on the level that I wanted to. So when I not completely recovered, but when I started to move through that, the next decision I had to make is, did I want to start my own team, or did I want to go join a team that was already functioning? And that's how I ended with Action Coach.
I see.
Because they are doing all the things that I was trying to do solo, but it's with a team and with the resources. So it's just been a wonderful, and it's a wonderful marriage of life coaching and business coaching.
So what's that everyday client? How are they finding you? Let's peel that onion a little bit on kind of, because I think there's a lot of business owners in the Tampa Bay that listen to this station. We follow Dave Ramsey. So I've got to assume there's a lot of folks that ears are perking up right now. And certainly through the live stream, I want to mention, if anyone's listening and looking for the Facebook live stream due to a unfortunate Facebook hack in the last 24 hours, that page is down. So we are live streaming on LinkedIn and YouTube. If anyone's looking around for us, that's why you're not seeing us on Facebook. But back to Teresa here, 9 years experience with Action Coach Tampa Bay. I want to kind of get into that everyday business owner, how they're finding you, what those questions are that maybe they're asking themselves that say this is a program suited for them.
So we are geared towards those, not startups, but people who have been in business, who have something that's established. So around the 3-year mark, and they're ready to make some moves in terms of building a team, but want to do it correctly. So we're talking to those who are finding themselves working 60 to 70 hours a week, don't have time for family. They have a great product. They love what they do, but they're falling out of love with it because they're finding that they got into business for more time, more team, more money, and that's not what they have. So the reality is that they are spending all their time in the business and they're not seeing the results that they want to see.
Yeah, we actually had, through the month of March, Women's History Month, we did a women empowerment series.
Yes.
And had many entrepreneurs on. And I think that was the biggest thing we heard through all of those women through that 5 weeks was to find real success. Being busy doesn't always mean you're being efficient, right?
God, right.
And you're spinning your wheels and from a big picture, grinding, yes, and you're getting things done, yes, but almost hindering yourself and handcuffing yourself. And the biggest thing I'd say that came out of that series was, do what you're good at. And delegate what you're not.
Absolutely.
Find the right key people, right? That can plug the holes where maybe you're lacking.
Right.
And I think coaching, that's certainly something I've gotten out of it. Getting into it the last couple of years has helped me do. So I can only imagine that's probably one of the first things you identify.
Absolutely. So what our founders, the Kais of the firm here in St. Pete, they wrote a book called WTF OMG. What's the focus? OMG, what's the focus? So, because I want you to think I was,
Yeah, I heard you.
Okay. And what we find is that if you can help them get focused on the right next thing, because business owners are brilliant and they have a number of ideas all the time. But it's helping them get focused on, okay, what is the one thing we need to focus on right now and do that to completion and then measure, test and measure if that's even working before we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mark Cuban, just in the era of all these reels and it's so neat. Right now, I think media and kind of this process of getting information out is exploding. He's got a series of reels out there that talks about even huge companies that go down these rabbit holes of getting lost in R&D and branding.
Yes.
And, having the proper paperwork and logos and But at the end of the day, you don't have a business until you have a client. Right. And so sometimes you just got to kind of launch and get moving, and some of that stuff will come with it. But I feel like that's one of the things that I hear, kind of next to finding the right key people. Just go. You'll figure it out. Just get moving.
Right.
And I think coaching can certainly help nudge that process along.
Absolutely. And focus is one thing, but also accountability. Because who keeps the CEO accountable?
Right.
Right? You just need someone there who is going to hold you to the same standard that you would hold someone else. Because it's just difficult for us to do that. We give ourselves breaks, right? CEOs will give yourself a break and say, I'll do it next time, or I'll do it tomorrow. But when you have a coach that's keeping you accountable, then we have deadlines, we have dates, we have measurable goals that we are trying to achieve. We have looked at your 5-year plan and we have backed that down into what are we doing daily, weekly, and quarterly to get these things done, get to that goal. So it's more accountability as well.
I like that. Well, you're listening to Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. In the studio today, Teresa Strong-Myrick, 9 years in the business with Action Coach Tampa Bay. We've got about a minute and a half before break here, Teresa. So what is the makeup? I know you said you service a lot of industries, but if you kind of went to the averages, what's the average client that you're working with at Action Coach? And I'm sure these range in all kinds of sizes, but is there a niche to what industries you're most effective with?
So we like to work with lawyers, trades, medical personnel who are concierge type, $250,000 and up to about $5 million. folks who are ready to scale, who have a big goal and they're trying to get to it. So we're not working with people who don't have have a goal and they're okay with where they are. We're looking for folks who are ready to go and have some big goals and big dreams that we can help them get to.
Yeah, I think that's huge. We had the EO Nerve Conference in Tampa Bay for the first time ever. That's part of the entrepreneur group I'm in. And the final closer, or I should say guest, was Patrick Bet-David. And bigger than some, and obviously the speaking circuit's blowing up. But instead of just kind of going in with that same, have get up early, exercise, like that same 4 or 5 things that you hear with all the coaches, he really took it a step further and peeled the onion on what's the vision. 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, really get into it, and it hit home with me. And there's a lot coming back. Honestly, it goes so fast. Lots coming back with Teresa and Action Coach Tampa Bay. Stick around, folks.
All right, we're coming back out with Teresa. Thanks for sticking around. Hello, Tampa Bay. We are back. Just wanted to make one quick correction there right before break. Teresa has actually been with Action Coach for the last year.
Most recently, over a year, yes.
And 9 years in the coaching business overall. Yes. So well, I think you are suited for it. You certainly seem to have a knack for coaching. And we were talking kind of at the close there of kind of how business coaching, I feel like maybe it's just because I'm new to it, but it seems like it's at an all-time high just with media and reels and social media and everything that's gone through. But so many of them are just kind of that vanilla. They have the same 5 to 6 things, like I said, have a gym routine, get up early, in bed by 9, read a book a month. So tell me, how is Action Coach Tampa Bay kind of setting themselves apart from all the other coaching entities out there?
Thanks for asking that question. What I love about Action Coach Tampa Bay and Action Coach in general is we are not a cookie cutter. We are someone who, I like to say, get all up in your business, literally, to figure out what is going on and what we need to work on first. So I like to use the analogy of your business as a puzzle. You have put together all the pieces that you know how to put together, and some of those pieces you tried to beat into the wrong place, right? But we come in, look at what you've done, see what is missing, and help you put it together so it's a cohesive unit that supports your growth.
Yeah, I like that. We call it peel the onion at PEO Advisors. Not that we've niched that by any means, but PEOs often are treated kind of as that one size fits all. But by proper diagnosis and finding the pain with the business owner, PEOs are just like any other businesses out there. They have risk appetites.
Mhm.
Some are benefit driven, some are payroll driven, some are comp driven. At PEO Advisors, that's what we've done a good job here of aligning ourselves with PEOs of all shapes and sizes
Right.
that can really make sure they help that business owner.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes, if a business owner's had a bad experience in the PEO space, it's because they were put with one that really didn't suit their needs.
Absolutely.
So I like the cookie cutter approach. I think it's so important. And it's almost like a double-edged sword. I feel like just with social media and kind of how it's blown up,
Mm-hmm.
so many folks are just used to that instant gratification. And some of that
Absolutely.
relationship building has almost taken a back seat.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I feel like it's still that old school Earl Nightingale, Zig Ziglar. They're going to buy from you if they like you and they trust you. And it's just
Absolutely.
so important to slow down a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and take that time. I would assume that's ever so true in the coaching space.
It is, and that's why we don't go after a hard sell first. We have introductory sessions where we have a 15-minute discussion to even see if you are fit for us. If you are fit for us, and then we go into a strategy session, a whole hour, to just talk about what specific one thing we could work on that can take your business to the next level. That's all free, but it's building the relationships that's so important. And the other thing is we don't just deal with the business, we deal with the person, because you can't, your business will not outgrow you. So we follow the be do have formula. Is, who you are will be multiplied by what you do, and then you will get what you want. But you have to start with the be. You have to become the person who will do the things to get the things that you want to have.
Become the person. I like it. I like it. I feel like, obviously, entrepreneurism, ship, however ism you want to label it, it's clearly not meant for everybody.
Right.
And some folks have that gear or they don't. And some folks are very much content on clocking in and clocking out, not having that responsibility way over their shoulders. And it's not that I necessarily knew at a young age this was what I wanted to do. It's just kind of how my path went along. In the mortgage space, I was 1099, eat what you kill, so to speak. Maybe a bad example, but you know what I mean. You got to close a loan to make a living, and then pivoted over to the PEO space, and you had to write some coverage to make a living. I guess we'll go with that analogy. And then it just kind of, I had a son at a young age, and my mentor was moving on to another state, and it forced me to kind of go on my own and start the agency, and just found that gear. But sometimes you've got to really pull it out of people. A lot of the business owners we deal with, they know a trade very well, but that doesn't mean that they are strong entrepreneurs, right? Whether they widowed into it, married into it, however, it just unfortunately happened. They're great plumbers and tradesmen, this, that, the other. I know I heard you say earlier you do a lot with the trades. I think that's very unique because a lot of them could use your services. And
And I don't think they realize until after the fact the freedom in releasing the business part to someone else, not completely releasing it, but when you can focus just on what you love doing and know that the business part is working efficiently and sustainably, then it takes a lot of pressure off you as a business owner. When you release some of the responsibilities instead of trying to do all the things on your own, it gives you a certain amount of freedom.
Yeah, we had a PEO on just a couple of weeks ago, and his favorite client is 5 employees or less. And he makes a joke about it because 4 of them have the same last name, right? It's usually the spouse, the kids, the relatives. And largely, I think the mindset is because they usually don't file claims on themselves either, right? So he's looking at it from a totally different view, but it parallels to this moment. So let's talk about this a little bit. What are some of the challenges that these business owners are coming to you with?
They're coming to us with various challenges. And like I said before, most of it is mindset around what they can and cannot do with their business. Some of it is they're not applying any different learnings to get to the new levels that they want to. So it can be a varied amount of things, but in this world, you can actually Google solutions to all of the problems that you're having in your business. The issue is following through on what is going to work for your business at this time. So they can come to us with, I just don't know where my money's going, because they don't know their numbers and they're not paying attention to it. they come to us with, I just need more, get in front of more people. And then it's okay. So if you get in front of those people, do you have what you need to support more volume? So it's looking at, what they see as a problem and going a little deeper and saying, well, what's really going on?
Yeah. No, I think that's I would imagine a big one, because we've all seen it at PEO Advisors where we show up and the business owner has the F-150. It's on the lift kit. It's got all the bells and whistles, right? And unfortunately, they're one failed draw away from not making payroll, right? And I always tell them, and maybe I'm out of my place or not, but if you would just watch the dollars when things are good, not just when things are bad,
right,
but when things were good, it could really pile up. And I don't mean that any sort of way. I've just seen it 1,000 times in my 22 years in this space. And so having that exterior kind of point that out, I would imagine can go a long, long way. But it's hard sometimes, whether they're new money, right? And it just feels good.
It does. And it also has to do with your mindset around money. So how you practice money in your personal life will spill over to how you handle money in your business life. And that's why I say it goes back to personal development, it goes back to mindset. It's tackling those things first before we can even tack on, these are your activities that you need to do. These are the strategies. Before we even get to strategy, we have to tackle mindset to understand how we got to where we are.
You're listening to Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. In the studio today, Teresa Strong-Myrick, a business coach with Action Coach Tampa Bay. You're blowing my mind right now, Teresa. I think that our relationship and our mindset with money is so broken. And it almost just feels like maybe from a governmental approach that they're feeding that in a sense. Now, I guess it's the millennial generation that has the most debt and spiraling out, right? The mindset of, pay me first and then I will work hard. Whereas I think just a couple generations earlier, it was go out, bust your butt, working hard, and the money will follow, right? But beyond that, I think even from kind of an educational approach, we are teaching them to go to work, get a day's pay, save your money, have no debt. There goes the water bottle, so excuse me. Have no debt, and put your money in the stock market. And I think maybe that approach works for, non-entrepreneurial mindsets, right? So are you almost trying to justify that mindset, break them of that mindset? Is that not even how you would approach it?
Not exactly. So we approach from the direction of, is what you're doing with money, is it something that is positive or negative, really? Is it helping you or harming you? And if it's harming where we are right now, then what do we need to do to change it? Where did this come from? It's going that route and not really putting any judgment on what it is. It's just if it's helping you or not helping you at this point, and what do we need to do about it going forward? Because if we get into the why and the blame, then we're going backwards. But we want to focus folks on what can we do going forward so that this is no longer a limit for you, a limiting factor for you.
I see. Now, are you helping these businesses kind of prepare for exits as well? Is that going to that level?
So the goal is that you get to a level where you have an enterprise that works without you. So when it is fully functioning and working like a well-oiled machine, you can step away. You can sell it, you can franchise it, you can just have it work as your passive income. It's up to you. But it's okay, to have the choice at that point and not have to work in your business. And we just want to give people the freedom of choice.
Yeah. I think coaching actually is huge for that, in the sense that I think a lot of business owners don't understand that if they're the one that still has to do all the work, and maybe it's thriving, 7-figure, 8-figure business, that's fine. But if you're the one that still has to come in and do all the work, this isn't really an exitable enterprise yet, right? You're really selling a job.
Exactly. And the last stat that I read was 90% of businesses that go to market do not sell. They do not sell because it is a job.
Yeah.
It is a job. You can't sell folks a job. They don't want to work in the business. They want something that's working on its own. That's what they want to purchase. In our history, we have in the 16, 17 years we've been around, we have had 30 businesses go to market, and 100% of those sell for more than asking, because that's how we set them up.
Yeah. No, it takes, again, I think maybe that's some of the looking in the mirror, because very few businesses even get to the 7-figure threshold.
Right.
And it would be hard to talk a business owner into understanding how or why that still is unmarketable. Right. I guess the true beta test is if you can fly to London for a week and the ship still runs itself. Now it's being able to scale. And I'm obviously just having some fun with that, having just traveled. But
seriously, if you can leave your business for a month and only have to check in every now and then on the computer to see what's going on,
we're on the right path.
Yeah, you're on the right path, for sure. But you can start practicing that. That's one of the things that's different about us. We have you practice that. We have opportunities for you to step away from your business and come to our entrepreneurship days, so that we're working on your business. The idea is that we want you working more on the business than in the business, and start that practice a little at a time, and at 5 hours a week at a time, so that you build up the belief in yourself that it can happen, right? And the belief in your team that they can do it. Empowering them to say, okay, I trust that you guys can do this. I've trained you enough. I've given you all that you need. You can do this, and I'm going to go.
Yeah, it really does start with training. And that is still the number one. We got about 4 minutes before break, but that is still the number one, since the kind of quote unquote great resignation. Every business owner that we're talking to is struggling to find staff. And it's a head scratcher, because the funding money's all gone. The PPP money's all dried up. The SBA economic injury disaster loans have been spent. I know there's this second wave of the ERTC money still out there, but where did everybody go? It's still the number one. I can't find good staff. So
we hear that too.
Yeah, I bet.
However, we also hear of folks who are finding. We have CEOs and owners who are finding people who are staying, who are taking lower pay to be there because of the environment that they have set up.
Lower pay. Wow.
We have one person in particular that I'm speaking of in our who's a client of ours, who implemented, because we implement a specific process, because no longer can you just put out a regular job listing. It has to really be an advertisement. It has to be a marketing tool for your company to say why I'm worthy. It's different. That's not what we're used to doing, but why am I the company you should choose over some other? But she implemented what we told her, and she was able to get a really good candidate who took lower money because she loved the environment she was in.
Wow. I would say that's a head scratcher. Kudos to you, right? Because it feels like the great American comeback will be the way, right? Whether it's finally bringing back the benefits that so many employers haven't had to do for so many years. We're at the point where you can get a job at McDonald's now for $15, $16 an hour right out of the gate. So if you're a skilled tradesman offering 13 or 14, how practical is that? And I just feel like, for the most part, the employers are bringing them back with more pay. But I guess with proper core values, creating and structuring an environment, a family atmosphere, is what you're saying, that you're able to not just have to dangle higher pay?
And not so much a family atmosphere, but an atmosphere where people feel seen, they feel heard, they feel appreciated. Because when you talk to people who are leaving companies, those are the things that they're complaining about. People aren't really leaving companies, they're actually leaving management. So it is how you're managing the folks you have, and the entire culture that you have created that makes them feel like they are a part of a team that they can grow in.
Yeah. I tell you, we only got about a dozen or so on staff. We've been as high as 2 dozen. Through the pandemic and everything else, we whittled out some stuff. We bought out a partner, family member or 2 left, things like that. But almost every one of them came from an environment where the boss yelled, right? Like, We don't yell here at PEO Advisors, and I don't know how. I've never been in that environment. Again, I've had just a couple of jobs in my adult life. I've been very blessed to find, being 22 years in the PEO space. But in the sense of that is so prevalent, almost like it's eye-opening. Right? How can you expect these folks to dig in, work nights, weekends, late, go that extra mile if they're getting screamed at on a daily basis?
Right. That and having a system that supports their growth as well. So that's one thing, to have someone who doesn't have the proper skill to talk to and manage people. The other thing is, do you have a system that also cultivates that, so everyone knows what they're doing, know what they're responsible for?
Yeah, no, that's huge. I think that's a great point. I think you'd be surprised how many businesses out there really don't even have core values posted on the wall, any kind of a formal training process. And I guess bigger than dangling the pay carrot, just knowing that there's somewhere for an advancement in a good environment goes a long, long way. Teresa, you're doing well today. Hitting bells all over the place. We got lots coming back. One more session. Stick around.
We're back. All right. We are back. You got Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. In the studio today, Teresa Strong-Myrick, business coach with Action Coach Tampa Bay. It's been fun, I guess. If I could do it all over again, I would just call the show Anything Entrepreneur. Because whether it's staffing, funding, anything that helps the employer, I really have found a deep, dear passion. It's educational, right? We got to get the content out.
Right.
It's not an infomercial on PEO Advisors. It's an infomercial on how to help businesses. And I think this really
kind of takes the cake, right? Because it's one thing to start a business. Clearly, you've got a passion to help these businesses shape and manage and be efficient and really get through all of that. I know we kind of touched on it just briefly, how Action Coach separates themselves from the pack a little bit, but I wouldn't want to kind of do another lap through that space. I think that's so important for anyone that's listening and their ears have perked up a little bit. Lay it out.
Awesome. So I will say this all the time, I love Action Coach Tampa Bay because I was a business owner out there looking for some kind of assistance and continuously purchased programs that was just a part of what I needed. Fell into the marketing and I got something that purchased something, spent thousands of dollars on something that I was not ready for. So we will have a conversation with you. We will go through what your goals are. Where do you see your business? Where do you see your business going? So we do that individual part, but what is really special about what we're doing now is that we've incorporated group coaching as well as allowing room for a mastermind session that's in person. So every third Friday we have what we call Entrepreneurship Day. This is for our current clients to come to, but we also have a webinar that we do as well in conjunction with that, so that people from business owners from the community can also come and kind of mingle and network with them. But that mastermind has been something that has just, it surprised us as to how much our business owners love it, because they're able to sit and talk with one another about what's going on in their particular business. So it's one thing to hear it from your coach, but when you are hearing it from other business owners who are also getting coached, who are in different stages of business, it just hits a little different.
Oh, yeah. That's one nice thing about EO, right? Entrepreneur Organization. And I feel it's not a leads group, and not to confuse that with a BNI type setting.
Right, exactly.
In fact, you're not allowed to ask for their business. Now, there's a lot of business going on, but they have to come to you. It's 100% confidentiality. You have to be a CEO. You have to be a 7-figure earner, unfireable, 5 years in business, right? Those are kind of like the minimum benchmarks. That said, there's folks in there. There's a lady in there that has a 900-acre sod farm. That's someone that sells purses online, resale, and then of course trades and all of the above. But I can learn just as much from a dentist with 6 offices, than I can from the sod farm, because the challenges of entrepreneurship are real, and there's a lot of parallels in there.
Right, because what we found, one of the reasons we did this was because many business owners, entrepreneurs feel alone. And who do they talk to? They talk to family members, they talk to other people in business. But even if you're talking to other business owners who don't have a growth mindset, you're just really spinning wheels and just having a hash session instead of learning what can I do to get better. In this environment where everyone is under coaching, it's amazing how we can walk around the room and just hear our coaching principles coming out of the mouths of our clients and helping one another. And it's a giving. Everyone is giving up their wisdom and they're helping one another. There's no competition in the room. And there's a lot of collaboration that's going on naturally.
Now, did I hear that you don't have to be a client to participate in this, or you do?
So for the mastermind, these are all clients.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, these are all clients. But we bring in other entrepreneurs for the beginning of it and during the lunch session so that they can just network.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Find their way to it. See if it's something for them.
Right.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
Now, I believe the show started that you said it's not that you don't do startups. It's that the typical client usually comes in at around 250.
So we actually do not focus on startups.
Okay.
So we want you to be about 3 years in, 2 to 3 years in, profitable and working. So we have some numbers to work with and manipulate and see where you are and where we can take this. Startups requires a lot of other things, right? And people get kind of caught in the weeds of, what does my brand look like? What am I going to name it? And we don't really.
That old Mark Cuban line.
Yeah.
Stuck in R&D. Got to have some clients.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. And instead of writing them the blueprint, right? It's hard to manage, tweak, improve if there's nothing. So I get that.
Right.
And it doesn't sound like it has to be this super huge benchmark here, right? I mean, they've whether they get to that moment in 18 months, 3 years, it's almost hitting that benchmark to be able to have something to mold and create. And I like that.
Exactly.
And so above the mastermind every third Friday, again, we've been going at this for 45 minutes. How is any business owner that hearing this and wanting to get in touch with you? What's the best way, Teresa?
So they can actually go to our website, Action Coach Tampa Bay. It's all written out, actioncoachtampabay.com. If you go to our events page, you will see the events that are coming up. We actually have a virtual workshop that's coming up in December, so people can join from wherever they are. It's free, and it's actually hosted by our founder, who is Brad Sugars, who started this in Australia 30 years ago. So that will be an awesome opportunity to come in and just kind of figure out, who we are, if it's something that you can see yourself participating in.
Yeah, it's funny with EO, again, that's a global brand as well. We just had one of our members go on a 8-country, 6-week trip and was literally meeting with EO members. He went to Spain, went to Amsterdam, and it was just kind of neat. It's like a passport, right? You're part of it. I'm part of it. Let's talk. And so does the action coach, I know they're in a lot of places, does that kind of work the same way? Are you able to find other clients, members?
Absolutely. And we also get together at least twice a year, the different so there's ones where we do a global summit that could be anywhere in the world. And we also do one here in the States, like our next one, we call it BizX. And we have that in, I think it's coming up in October of next year. But that's for all business owners to come together. We learn from one another. We learn from international speakers. And it's also an award ceremony. So we can, award our folks and for the work that they've been doing all year.
Excellent. I think that's always nice to be able to showcase, right, the hard efforts and prospering. That's kind of nice. Good for you. It's a great program. I think that any business that is teetering on possibly using coaching, right, you can't lose. Even Tiger Woods has a swing coach,
oh my gosh, right?
Like it's until you get to that moment of, and I don't know if it's ego, right, but there's got to be that moment where a little bit of neutral. It's like having a neutral ear, right? In this moment of how can I get better? And I think, like I said, we had Patrick Bet-David, and it was kind of neat because unlike just going up and kind of doing that vanilla, he really kind of took it down to like, what's the next 90 days? What's the next 6 months?
Absolutely.
And sometimes that gets hard. I've had that 7-year itch here at PEO Advisors a couple of times. But we rebranded. We brought a partner out at 7 years, and then we kind of rebranded, and now we're taking the ultimate dive with this next change. But if and when you get stuck like that, I think it's a neat way to kind of pull you out of it.
Absolutely, Evan. It can be as simple as sitting down with someone outside of yourself to go through your goals. Just that alone, pulling that out of folks, because many people haven't sat down just to say, where am I taking this business? What is the end? Because at some point we are going to stop working. Right?
At some point
you will stop working. So are you going to design that for yourself, or is it you're just going to let it happen?
Yeah.
So it's just really sitting down and doing something just as simple as that. I remember not too long ago, I took in a new client and we sat down and just went over her goals just for the next 5-10 years. And she said she hadn't done that in the last 20 years.
Wow.
So even that can be just transformative for you, just kind of get out of your head to know, where do I want to take this? Because sometimes things come up that you hadn't even thought about because you have someone else prodding and asking the questions.
Yeah. No, it's just so easy to get stuck like that. Especially if it's rolling. Right? I'll just keep doing the same thing. Right? But if there's that's what capitalism's all about, right? It's clear that we live in the best country. I don't mean to be biased, but ever spending a week over in London, and it's neat and as cool as it was, still very proud to be an American in that sense. And, I think it's something, I saw a stat the other day, like America produces 600 millionaires a quarter. Much bigger number than I thought. And so I think it's just when it's rolling like that, it's just so easy to continue. This happens in football, right? There's a sport analogy here, right? It's hard to beat the same team 3 times because the team that wins, we're just going to keep going with what's working.
Right.
And the team that loses, right, adjusts and tries to go at it another way. And so that old lesson of every failure has a lesson in it.
Absolutely.
Right. And so sometimes a crash and burn can be one of the best things that happen to you. So, but if you had to give any advice, I guess anyone that's listening that has been considering coaching or really, one more time to ring that bell on Action Coach, what would you put out there?
Just make the call. Make the call and find out, because the worst thing you could do is sit there and wait too long. Wait too long before, you have just ran out of resources and you're not able to get any help. But if you're thinking about it, if you're contemplating, if you find yourself stagnant and not moving, because what's the analogy? If you're not growing, you're dying. So if you're stagnant, then you're not growing. You're going backwards. So if you assess your situation and be truthful with yourself about where you are, look at your numbers, your real numbers, and you see that there's some room for improvement, then just make the call.
Yeah, like you said, just do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just do it.
Next week we're bringing on a gentleman, Mason Dorner, a dear friend of mine. He's co-founder of Ascendant, and they're kind of an angel investor. You know, they're big with SaaS and e-com. He's had over $1 billion in online sales at one point working for Disney, and he always does kind of like a top 5, and that's jump when ready, right?
Yeah.
It may not feel good, but that's what it is with entrepreneurs. You got to kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit, right? It's just so tough, and all things are not created equal, whether it's financially or you're down to your last red cent in a sense. Being blessed and being in this space for such a long time, I've got such a solid footing, and although, yes, there's new challenges in front of us, I've got this PEO advisors that I can always fall back on.
Yeah.
And yes, it's creating many opportunities for me. So it's like to have that one nest egg first, right? But how do you get there? What's that really look like?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just starting, we like to say, start with the end in mind. If you don't have your end planned out, then give us a call, because we can at least help you know what the plan is. Because you're losing nothing by just calling and just getting another eyes on what you're doing, right? We're not charging you to do that. So at least make the phone call to know what you don't know, right?
Start with the end in mind. Wow. Right. Think about that when you're just trying to launch, just trying to open the doors. I guess every new opportunity should be thought of, where do I really want to go with this, right? Is this something I want to pass down to the kids? Is this let's blow it up and exit in 5 years?
What I find kind of interesting is that folks who leave the corporate world and start their own business, when they were in the corporate world, they were just upset about, I'm just working for retirement. But that was at least something at the end, right? When you start a business, what is at the end for you? Like, what are you building towards? What is going to support you when you're no longer able to work? Like, one of the largest lessons I've learned in entrepreneurship is, if everything is wrapped around me, what happens when I can't? If I'm differently able and I can't do it, if I have to be pulled away to take care of family members and I can't do it, what happens? Who does it affect? It affects my business, but it also affects everyone around me, the vendors, the clients, my family.
It's so true. When we started the business back in 2010, and we bought a partner out in 2016, that was a big turn for myself, because not that I'm necessarily a control freak, if you will, but I was doing, what felt like 90% of the work, as a 50-50 owner. And, buying that partner out and bringing in Eric Chikarelis was really the tide turner for me to truly delegate, to truly allow other functions within the business do their job. And we've literally soared to new heights there.
Absolutely.
And without that moment of just saying, this can't last forever. Something's going to burst, whether it's mentally, physically. We were getting to the point when I would do commissions, I would be out for like 2 days, to the wee night hours I got pneumonia like 2 months in a row.
Wow.
And finally, it's time. We have to do the commissions through the CPA and let them be more efficient. And it's just one layer at a time. And then really went on a great run of, like 8 new hires in a row, all made it. And now 4 of them have their 10-year plaques. 3 of them have 5-year plaques. Wonderful. It was just like a great run. A little bit of luck in there. But finally turned that page, leveled out both back office, front office, and it was a true game changer for us. So we've got about 1 minute left.
Yes.
I want to do this one more time, Teresa. I really appreciate you coming in, but for anyone that wants to get a hold of you, best way to get you.
ActionCoachTampaBay.com, and go on to also our link tree. If you go to our link tree, I don't know the whole thing, but go to our link tree. I think it's link.tree action coach,
Mm-hmm.
and you will see a plethora of opportunities that you can take advantage of.
They've got a great series in there, the Business Spotlight series. It's really neat. That's how we were able to connect. Thank you so much, Teresa. Like I said, next week, Mason Dorner, co-founder of Ascendant, building billion-dollar brands, will be in studio. You know how the show ends. Love God, appreciate your PEO, be kind to your staff, and know we're on a 167-hour break.
You've been listening to Everything PEO.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Where as another lesson comes to a close, another business gets
See you
smarter.
next week.
Tune in next Wednesday at 6 p.m. so they can